You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Cynthia Toolin-Wilson on my show, Author to Author. And I'm really excited about the person that I'm going to be talking to tonight. It's Dr. Rafael Gonzalez. And he's written a very interesting book called True Catholic Doctrinal Development: The Modal Distinction of Francisco Suárez and its Christological-Theological Consequences. So this promises to be a very interesting interview.
Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. So would you like to start us with a prayer?
Sure, yes. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
Mary, seat of wisdom,
pray for us.
In the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
You know the book is good if the title is difficult to pronounce. It's difficult to say.
It was. And I already read the whole book, so you think that wouldn't have been.
No, but I even with the title, I'm like, oh wow, this is a good sign.
Yeah. That's good. Good. Mm-hmm. So, when you decided to write, what led you to this particular topic?
Yeah, so Suárez, I always loved the doctrine of Suárez. I thought it was very much, we can say, harmonized between medieval Scholastic, the era of that doctrine and the more modern doctrine, but without falling into the errors of, modern philosophy and a lot of the theology from that time. So I think Suárez has gotten unfair treatment in the English speaking world. That's how I feel. They accuse him as a precursor of modern philosophy, and without qualifying that. So he's a scholastic, and even where he is historically, I mean, he's in the 16th century, going to the 17th, and he's a Jesuit, and he's not that well known. Now you're starting to see translations of his work, but his works are not completely translated into English. In Spanish, they are. So. I kind of wanted to bring Suárez into the English-speaking world to deal with this topic of the relation between philosophy and theology, and how he can provide, through the Christological synthesis, through his doctrine of the modes, he can kind of bring a new discussion to that very polemical topic already, the relationship and kind of between nature and supernature and all that kind of what people would say a mess, but it's very interesting. And I think he has a lot to contribute. So, I mean, I myself, I'm Cuban origin. Both my parents are Cuban. So I have something, my heart is in Spain. I studied in Spain for a long time. I think it's a bedrock of Catholicism. It has a lot to offer. I believe John Paul II, he learned Spanish for the sake of reading St. John of the Cross, which he wrote his dissertation on. So Spanish, I think, is essential for Catholicism. And I think these Spanish, these figures, theologians and philosophers, need to be brought out to light in different, where Spanish is not spoken, say English speaking in this case.
Yeah, there are many native speaking Spanish people, but most Americans, I think, can't speak two languages fluently. I think part of that is because we don't run into people that are speaking the same language. I mean, I might run into someone who's Vietnamese and someone who's Spanish, but I need common language, And then when you do that, you can start to pick it up.
That's true. Yeah, America, they're shocked by having two languages. As opposed in Europe, they're like, you only have two languages. So
only. Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's great. So,
So yeah, no, I mean, the thesis is something I have a passion for. When I was first writing my thesis, they told me, can you make it more theological? They were telling me, there's not a PhD in philosophy, but I was but essentially my belief is you can't, and this is the traditional belief, that you can't have theology without a firm basis in philosophy, especially metaphysics. Now, it is true I did have to be a lot more theologically clear in the thesis, because the focus was heavily metaphysical.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like metaphysics, definitely get the book. If you're interested in metaphysics, get the book, because I deal with also the different questions on really difficult metaphysical questions, like the principle of individuation, the distinction between existence and essence. Another one was, I forget another one of the questions. I think the notion of relation, but they're dealt with there. So physics is key.
Well, I've read, I wouldn't say I don't know, I haven't read 50 dissertations, but I certainly read enough of them. And I really worked at that. It's like I was reading along and it was like, wow, this is interesting. And then I'd have to stop and think back to old stuff that I knew from way back when. So it was really a very positive experience for me. And I thought, he's going to think I died and forgot him. That's why I was writing to you every day. It's like, okay, I got through chapter 1.
Yeah, that's good, because just to see all of theology as a system, really going back to, because for me, what was hard writing about Suárez was that when I was talking about a certain point, I had to go back to another point in his metaphysics, because everything is like a web that is tied together. So I could not address one topic without its foundation, right, in another area in metaphysics. So that was a challenge. And actually, my director was telling me, please stop going down these rabbit holes. Actually, I simplified the thesis. So if you like kind of, I didn't go down, metaphysical rabbit hole, but if you like kind of the complexity of metaphysics, then definitely you would enjoy the book. So,
that's true. It's well written. And I don't think as I was going through it, I think I might have only had 2 or 3 comments, if that. It's like it just flowed. It was clear. And it was super good.
Yeah.
So,
no, thank you for that. What's really interesting is that the different schools, especially in the 16th century, the Catholic intellectual schools, like you have the Dominicans and the Jesuits, and even the Franciscans come on a little later. I deal with that, and I use some works that favored the Jesuits, which is kind of funny. I think those works are great, but my director, he's like, oh, you have to. Some of these works can be polemical, but I think that's good in a way. Like, we have to instill a little bit of passion into theology. Obviously we're using reason, right? Revelation, and we're using reason to expand on it, but also, hopefully reading this book, people can see that it's kind of permeated with the passion. And that's why I have a passion for the subject, and it's exciting when you're trying to pursue truth that's not easy to obtain.
Yeah, that's true. But it's well worth doing. And if you're successful in the end, you've really accomplished something,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
One of the main topics today is that, the whole personalism topic. I really kind of wanted to provide a basis, maybe a framework to kind of think that out, that the person is a synthesis, by talking about the realities of person and nature and how they are distinct. So really, the thesis talks about Catholic development and how that works, because words are important. So the church evolves in the usage of words. Now, it's not, there's no evolution of dogma in the modernist sense, we could say.
No,
reality
of course
in
not.
flux.
Yeah.
But there is in our minds. So the church uses philosophy, right? It is the handmaiden of theology, and uses terms, and these are in development. There's a progress in these terms. So with Suárez, his notion of the modes, it could kind of help explain the unity of the person, or a very deep metaphysical unity, where for the Thomistic position, very basically, at least the Cajetan, the 16th century Thomist, was that the distinction between person and nature is real. And yes, it has to be real in a sense because Jesus, he didn't have a human nature at one point, and then afterwards he did.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously signs of some type of real existence. But then the Scotus position, which is interesting, focus more on a logical distinction, where no, there's no distinction at all. Once it's a reality, it's just the person's a negation of the nature, which we have to qualify that a little bit, but that's basically the Scotus position. With Suárez, he's going to come up with this distinction, which is in between logical and real, which is very interesting because all distinctions in a way are made by the mind, but they have to have some type of basis in reality.
Yeah.
It cannot just be purely logical. So Suárez says purely logical distinction is like Peter as a noun and Peter as a direct object, a grammatical distinction. That's purely logical.
Yeah.
But in a real distinction, he gives, things that can be separated. He gives other type of characteristics of real distinctions. But with the modes, and this is interesting, he talks about it's a distinction that does have its basis in reality, but it's formally made in the mind. And this is going to be his position on universals, which is controversial also. Some people think he's going to tend towards nominalism. He gives less reality to universals, seemingly, than Aristotle, at least. Aristotle says universals exist particularized. But Suárez, we're going to say, well, universals exist foundationally, but they formally exist in the mind. So it's a very interesting middle position that Suárez kind of has without falling into nominalism. He would say they do have a certain reality, as the modes do. So the modes is a modification of a being, the ultimate modification. And those are types of beings. They're very tenuous beings, but they are beings.
Yeah.
So he's ultimately going to say the person is the ultimate modification of the nature, right? That makes it totally incommunicable. And it's really not separated from its nature, but it's not just logically distinct.
Right.
So it's modally distinct. Some people say splitting hairs, but
the hairs that we split are important.
That's right. That's right.
There's no two ways about that. You really can't understand things fully until you start making, a lot of distinctions. And
that's right. What Thomas Aquinas said.
Yeah.
Right?
As opposed to just, you define it and memorize it. Well, that's okay when you're 10. But as you get a little older, you ought to look a little deeper.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Just the unity of the person is really interesting as far as his whole unity in metaphysics and how he started writing metaphysics while he was doing so. He was writing a Christological work, and then he got into really profound metaphysical questions, and he said, I have to leave this work. And then he wrote his metaphysical disputations, his main work that he's known for. That it was used for centuries in the universities, and he wrote that in order to address certain Christological issues. So it's really interesting. The interplay between faith and reason in Suárez is very, very intimate. Some people say he secularized philosophy, but you have critics from the other side saying that his philosophy is essentially, we can say, it's Christian, which he does say that at the beginning, but it's absurd to think that because his philosophy is born from Christology. His whole metaphysical system is born from the mystery of Christ, and you can argue that his method is modern, and it is because he doesn't just restrict himself to the commentary method that the Scholastics did. They just basically commented on Aristotle. Even St. Thomas Aquinas did that. He didn't write an entire work on philosophy.
Right.
So, but Suárez, and this is what people are going to criticize him for, and I don't think it's fair because of that method. They see him as kind of Cartesian in that sense. But no, Suárez is not beginning from scratch. He is basically, he is going to the authorities. Descartes wanted to start himself from scratch and find, indubitable principle. But Suárez, no. Suárez, he knew what to take and kind of write his system from there.
Yeah. One of the bright lights, I'll tell you.
Yes, for sure. And the church has, Saint Pius V called him the eximius. I don't know if it's a good eximio in Spanish, eximius in Latin, eximius doctor. So John Paul II also in Faith and Reason referred to Suárez too. So by no means, so in certain metaphysical questions, like it could get really ugly, the discussion between Thomas and Suárez. It gets really interesting. And actually my director, he I wouldn't say he's a Suárez, but on some questions he was defending the Thomist position. And this is the beauty of Catholicism, because some people think Catholicism, you have to rigidly believe in this. No, there is actually pluralism, right? We do have the parameters of the faith.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of pluralism inside. There's a lot of opinions, in difficult questions. And the church allows, this development of theological opinions. Now, they shouldn't excommunicate each other, which happened in the 16th century, 16th, 17th century in Spain, the golden age of Spain, which is a beautiful time. But it's there is this pluralism of thought, and the Jesuit school is one of them, and it's a beautiful one.
Yeah. Well, it's good because, I don't think that the realities that we look at are just like, just something that can be defined only once. It's like when you think of pluralism, where people are coming at things from different angles, different, different ways of looking at things. A lot of times you can see so much more. It's the reality obviously is there, but how we describe it or explain it doesn't have to be just one way.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, really, it's interesting how we know reality and through the symbols of ideas. In a sense, we do know reality. But
of course,
we use our expressions, human categories, to know reality and to express them. So those can always get better. A lot of people, I call it misplaced dogmatism, when people have a certain philosophy as dogmatic. And definitely, St. Thomas Aquinas is, as Leo XIII said, he is definitely the bulwark of Catholicism. You don't want to deviate from Thomas Aquinas. You're especially not on your own. Like, oh no, Thomas is wrong here. No. But at the same time, there on the other hand, there is like a misplaced dogmatism that believes, outside of Thomism, there's no salvation. That's the other extreme. There's no salvation outside of Thomism. I've met those, and good Catholics, good, and sometimes and some non-Catholics love Thomists, but I mean, the whole question of Immaculate Conception, which is fascinating, which he actually, I talked to a Dominican and he said, no, he wasn't wrong. He actually provided the basis for the definition of the Immaculate Conception, which is true in a sense, because as Thomas Aquinas said, she had to be redeemed. She wasn't exempt from redemption. So he was right in that. She was redeemed with a liberative, right? A preservative or liberative redemption, as Scotus kind of expounded on. But the theologians are fallible, and again, Thomas, yes, Saint Thomas is the bulwark, is a beacon of light for sure. But at the same time, we cannot. The dogma is in what we define in the actual dogmas, right, in the teachings of the church.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting point, because so many people get, kind of seduced by a particular way of looking at things like Thomism and can't see anything else. They always argue against the other thing, whatever it may be, looking at the same issue, but from two different points, and cannot see eye to eye.
No, yeah, that's how it is, and it's it's unfortunate. Benedict XVI, for example, he was not. He said explicitly he's not a Thomist, and he is probably probably the best theologian of the 20th century, or one of the most, one of the most profound, at least. So he was more Augustinian in his view. And St. Thomas, no doubt, provides. He provides the best system for precision, so you don't you don't err.
No,
So,
exactly.
but there is a pluralism. There's an Augustinian school. There's there are principles for sure. There are principles that they're undeniable in philosophy. But again, kind of like this pluralism, knowing the schools is good. There's an Anselmian school, the Benedictine school, which is very much is a school of thought. Then you have the Jesuits, which is it's funny because Suárez thought he was the authentic interpreter of St. Thomas, so he considered himself a true Thomist, which is very interesting.
It is.
So, because a lot of these questions, especially the questions I deal with, weren't questions that St. Thomas at least explicitly dealt with. Like some say he did not talk explicitly about a real distinction between essence and existence, at least without qualification. So, there's Suárez feels like the 16th century Spanish Jesuits, Spanish Dominicans with Domingo Baez and the others there. He believes they kind of hijacked St. Thomas in a sense. And
No, interesting.
Yeah, that time period is absolutely essential for any Catholic to know. Read the book and get to know about the 16th century, because while Protestantism was just kind of just spreading all over, Spain maintained the Catholicism. Well, thanks in a sense to the Spanish Inquisition. But really, Protestantism did not penetrate Spain. So that's really interesting. And they actually had a golden age of Catholicism. A lot of saints, a lot of doctors of the church during that time. Protestantism penetrates later into Spain. So while Europe is, Christianity is on the decline, a lot of wars going on, the 30-Year War, you have the golden age of Spain, and this is the environment here where Suárez is going to come in.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when you look at the historical context too.
Oh, yes.
Really. Yeah.
It's definitely vital. And again, Suárez's place, he knew nominalism. That's the thing. So that a lot of the scholastics didn't know nominalism. They don't even address epistemology explicitly. They don't talk about, because it's just a given. Realism is just, things exist. I can know them. You don't talk about what truth is so much. You don't talk about what is knowledge. It's almost like epistemology is more of a modern branch of philosophy. But Suárez did realize the nominalism of Occam, and he considered it in a sense, not considered it as like assenting to it, but he considered it in a sense too. Well, what are some of these epistemological questions that we can address? Which is very interesting. One of the main things in epistemology for Suárez is that he believes the intellect has direct knowledge of singulars, which is not maybe it's interpretation more as not the Thomistic epistemology. Usually, the intellect is universals, even though yes, the intellect can know things, but the object of the intellect is. Well, they're the universals, and then you have the object of the senses are particular things, and the universals really are particularized by matter. So Suárez is really interesting in kind of this Augustinian position where the intellect can penetrate singulars, and the intellect works together kind of with the senses. It's a very interesting kind of epistemology that he has. And his notion of abstraction too, which I mentioned in the book. The Thomist notion of abstraction, you need matter and form. And what you do, you abstract the form. Suárez, you don't need the matter and form. That's not a prerequisite for abstraction. Abstraction is just looking at a different aspect of the thing. So you're not abstracting the form of the form. It's just kind of like you're looking at a different aspect of the thing, because his definition of being for Suárez is individual. Individual is part of the definition of being. Being is always individual. It doesn't have to be individualized by another principle, which is the matter and all that.
Yeah.
Or its own species. So it's again, these metaphysical questions. Hopefully I'm not boring your viewers.
I'll bet a lot of them haven't heard this sort of thing before, and they may be fascinated by it.
Yes.
You know, it's always nice to know, more and something different. It can shed light on stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just having the metaphysical view, living in kind of the immutable realm, gives us peace of mind. I mean, just all this news and all these changes and this chaos that's going on. It's philosophy and theology, of course. They give us the immutable, which ultimately is God Himself, and they give us a certain peace. So it's about being. We know philosophy and theology to be a theologian and philosopher. So that's the goal. The goal is for us to be that, and it just gives us a lot of peace.
That's true. I've never seen a wild and crazy philosopher. I mean, they're usually pretty calm and thinking.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny.
Especially if they're a stoic, right? Where you have like the suppression of the passions in the sense of those. So it's interesting. All philosophy believes kind of this dichotomy between the passions and the reason. Though of course passions can be good or bad in the Aristotelian Thomist tradition, which Catholicism has assumed. Passions they can be good or bad. They're indifferent in themselves.
Yeah.
But it's about living the life of reason, especially the control of the passions. So that's the goal. It's kind of how do you say, this control, essentially, this stability. That's what it gives us. That's what we all need, stability, right? Psychologically, without stability, we cannot form ourselves in any aspect.
You're right.
For children, especially for children. I mean, that's why marriage exists, for the whole stable environment, right? For kids. And stability is essential. And really, I think theology and philosophy are those things, right? These sciences that provide us stability. That's why I love being a philosopher and theologian. You do have to actualize yourself knowing new things, but it's not like you're a doctor in a sense that what you learned like years ago can be totally obsolete, or like a dentist or whatever, or any profession really.
Yeah, you're right.
To show the total, the mutability of reality. It's just changing. It's changing. But that deep-seated reality, which doesn't change, it's it's beautiful, and we need that.
Yeah, you don't hear too much about that in I'm saying the real world, not like philosophy isn't real, but in the massive non-philosophical world,
right.
It's there's not much stability at all. It's everything is changing.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people become philosophers in the moral sense that Socrates used it when things bad happen to them, and many times it's a wake up call. I remember there's a joke Socrates said that if you have a good wife, you will be happy. If you have a bad wife, you'll become a philosopher. Obviously, it pertains to husbands too, right? So, so Socrates said that, yeah.
Oh my, that's hysterical.
I guess Plato said that, but yeah, Plato heard him say that and wrote it down. But yeah, it's interesting. It's the antidote we need in today's society. That's why I started a YouTube channel before, and I was thinking of talking about news. I'm like, should I talk about news? But first of all, a lot of people do it very well. And it's so very stressful. You have to be constantly knowing it's depressing, and you have to, you just have to be so immersed in technology also to And it's I said, no, let me just do topics on philosophy and theology, and those are perennial. I mean, they never get old.
Yeah.
Never get old. So it's so with my book, I definitely address the classical metaphysical questions, the polemics involved, and also trying to give it the new, we can say, the new, we can say the aspect kind of what is a person, because that is a really hot topic today, kind of like what is a person, how do we define personality? That's really, especially the pro-life, the pro-life, those groups, they're really trying to delve into this question of personality. So
yep, we are unrepeatable.
That's right. And it's it's really interesting. I'm working with a colleague of mine. She wants to write articles together, another doctor, and and she's all about the person, and it's amazing. And she says we have to define as a dogma the ensoulment, the personality, the personhood of the zygote, of the person immediate at conception. Person exists. That has to be defined. And the Immaculate Conception has revealed that scientific truth. It's very interplay of So it's a very important topic. This whole notion of person, and especially today, where the immutabilities in crisis, people are asking. Well, the whole notion of everything's in flux. People are asking, nature doesn't exist, right? Or essentially, or what is a man? What is a woman? AI kind of trumping everything natural. Nature is being suppressed. So it's the emergence of AI kind of redefining things that we thought were immutable. And no, this is not the case. The AI can never replace natural.
No.
Right. It can never replace a man. No, even if he has all these augmentations, we can say robotics or cyborg, there comes to a point where the soul will leave the man, right? Because the soul needs a certain matter that is sufficiently disposed to hold the soul. So once that matter is not, there's no soul there. You don't have a person anymore. Right. So this whole unity is very important. All these aspects, Christ had these, right? Christ had every single aspect, as the Cappadocians said, Saint Gregory and Saint Basil. They said whatever was not assumed was not redeemed. So really, Christ had to assume every single aspect of human nature, right? Except for his brokenness of sin. But he assumed everything. Well, some of the effects, obviously, original sin. He did take not the concupiscence, but the suffering and the death and all that. He definitely had that. He wanted to take all that on. So it's really beautiful that Christ reveals to us what is man.
Yeah,
he used philosophy to unpack that. That's what Suárez did, and that's what the book is about. In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
I tell you, I worked hard to get to that nutshell. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, at the beginning it might flow better, but in the middle it gets a little more dense, and then
I was going to say dense.
Yeah, maybe a little more.
We had the same word. Actually, it's quite dense.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good. It's certainly not above the ability of a non-philosopher to work at and read and understand.
Right.
It would take time, but they'd have something really valuable at the end. So.
One of the reasons I wanted to write it too, because I think theology is kind of falling into, the kind of this existentialist tendency, which sees theology as irrational. So it wants to divorce theology from philosophy. Like all theology is a type of, basically is a mystical experience. You read this existentialist theologians, and I have no idea what they're talking about. it's like it's called inductive theology. It's based on experience. It's based on maybe pseudo mysticism. There's legit mysticism, of course. Mystical
Yeah,
theology
sure, of course.
is ineffable. You can't you can't put into words, even though there's science behind it. But with this existentialist trend, it wants to see theology. Now, theology is not rationalist. That's not, but it is rational. It is reasonable, right? Because reason comes from God. So this break with the modern contemporary theology between reason and faith is something I kind of wanted to counteract in my work. So my work is it tries to be very, very much based on reason and revelation, and the two as together, which is the whole Thomism project.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes our lives too. I mean, I understand what you're saying about experience and how people are thinking of theology differently and philosophy differently too. But I do think that there's a place for personal experience in the sense that you can use that to explain theology. So I'll just take a 1-minute walk here. So I wrote my memoir, which I think I might have mentioned that to you.
You did, yeah.
But yeah, so the fact that that I had to deal with the issue that my mother had tried to chemically abort me in 1949, and I never really came to any conclusions about that until I became Catholic. And it was like that really had a heck of an effect on my theology, because I am so pro-life. I mean, it's like I am way beyond pro-life. It's like I'm trying to push people, because I think that when you have experiences like that, and I mean, I just use that as a personal one, but I do think sometimes God puts certain people in certain positions so that it can move things. You can help to move things forward.
Yeah, for sure. No, that is.
And so I have often thought of that, because there's no reason in the world that I would have ended up being Catholic. I wasn't born Catholic. And then when I became Catholic, I mean, I was really Catholic. It's like, okay, I've got to, and here I am now. I'm a theologian with a license, and believe me, I saw none of that coming. It was like, whoa. But yeah, I think we have to take that into account too, because God does move things.
I think most people actually come to the faith through some type of profound experience. I mean, there are some people, but even that is a type of experience, who come through purely rational. That is, there's very few of those. I think definitely some type of, experience, right, whether negative or positive, that definitely affect people. Yeah, and that's a powerful witness too. That's a powerful witness too for definitely converting people. Yeah, no doubt. So I'm actually a veteran. I was in Iraq, so that's really when my Catholicism kind of became very strong.
Yeah,
there, because not only the physical dangers, because I was transportation, truck driving, very dangerous. So we actually lost someone in the company. He got killed by one of the improvised bombs, they call them, the IEDs.
IED.
But the moral dangers was very difficult. There's just a lot of things going on there. Not to say anything against the soldiers or anything, but just just the environment of, there's just could be a lot of moral dangers, like you say, and I felt definitely God protecting me. We prayed before each convoy, and they used to call me the Pope. So they're like, "Hey, Pope, come, you pray," and I was the prayer leader. So, and even the Protestants would come, and I would always offer prayer and mention the Virgin Mary, and the Protestants were there. And yeah, thanks be to God. That experience definitely strengthens me. And when I tell people about the experience, yeah, it's definitely a motivator. So, and it definitely formed me as where I am today. So,
yeah. It's just funny, when you think of an experience that, in my case, I certainly don't have any memory of that experience except being told about it. And, but to have experiences like you're talking about, I think that makes it an even more powerful potential influence on theology.
Yeah,
it's very different from being told about something and thinking about it as opposed to living it.
And that's what Suárez, because Suárez he's a philosophy of the concrete. I think a lot of these desires of the existentialists, which they did have, they were reacting to extreme, abstraction, in a Hegelian sense, everything's systematized and everything's abstract. And it's, because existentialism with the Kierkegaard was the Christian existentialism, not as, not compared to the Sartrean, we can say existentialism, which is very radical. But in a sense, it had noble origins. It wanted to go back to existence, concrete, as opposed to the essentialism of, being very abstract. So Suárez also, and this is another thing I mentioned in the book, he does have a very interesting position. Some people accuse him of being essentialist, being very abstract, but no, Suárez is, in a sense, they call him an integral existentialist. He believes, and this is, so the Thomists would say, the first thing that we know is being. But Suárez says the first thing we know is the concrete thing. So that's really interesting. So Suárez is even though he is very abstract, right, in his system, but it is very much down to earth, based on letting reality purely guide the principles, and not principles reality. That's what he wanted to do. So he's very much a realist, and many people would say he is more of those polemical articles. They would say he's what you call the immediate realist, where he does say that being is essentially one. That the first thing we know are concrete things. Nothing exists that is not individual. So, and that's a problem with kind of with the universals. That the universals, yes, they do have certain existence, but what kind of existence they have? That whole polemic there is fascinating. Plato, Plato's, and Suárez is compatible with Plato in a sense that God uses exemplars to create through these things, but it doesn't make any sense that you can never say that thing as a universal. So Suárez does have a problem with this kind of, this abstract thought that's not too clear. That makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So I think Suárez is very good, because actually I wrote a paper in phenomenology, how Suárez can answer a lot of the phenomenologist desires, going back to the thing. Right? Well, that was the scream of, or the motto of Husserl. Let's go back to the things. Even though he fell off a little bit towards idealism, Suárez definitely does that, going back to the thing. And that's why he's not so much focused on the magister dicit argument. This past teacher said that. That's the argument of authority. Yes, that's legit. That's legit. But at the same time, with philosophy, you have to see the intrinsic reasons of things, or at least try to expound them. Right. Now, I don't believe everyone should do this. This is the modern era. The modern era is like, yeah, let everyone write their own philosophy. No. That God gives gifts to certain certain individuals. I'm not going to write, I'm not a whole system on my own. Well, maybe God inspires me, who knows? But not now. I'm not capable, to write a system. But there are those who have these intellectual gifts that God gives, and they're able to profoundly interpret reality using these new words, we can say, these new kind of notions. that help us to penetrate reality into a different sense. The whole notion of phenomenology is fascinating, though it should be based on realism, of course. But there's a lot. There's, again, going back to the notion of pluralism. It's it's something admirable.
It's all very interesting. You can spend a whole lifetime thinking about that.
Oh yes, yes. Yes, and I'm actually, well, this is for one book, but I'm writing another book, so that's another interview, but that's another book on anthropology, and because I think that's the topic for today, and again,
theological anthropology or real?
Yeah, so it's kind of it's talking about the need to recuperate a sound pessimistic anthropology, in the sense that we've fallen we've fallen greatly into a radical anthropological optimism, in a sense of the state of man. Obviously, optimism in God, of course, optimism in Christ, absolute, but the pessimism, I think we need to tend a little bit towards the Augustinian pessimism, without falling into the Lutheran, the traditional Protestant pessimism of man, where it's totally corrupt. But I think there's optimism and pessimism. I think the dial is turned just here. So just as interpretation of today, I'm not saying this is the answer in universal, but just for today, I think we need to go a little more towards the pessimism of man's state, and see that he is fallen, he is broken, and not everything he feels is good. Right, and Augustinian gives us the basis of that, going against Pelagius, who was extreme optimist in a sense.
Yeah. All you have to do is look at history.
That's right. That's right.
Man is man's work. Man is actually the worst enemy of man.
That's right. Man, yeah. All you gotta do is look at history, and I understand with the 60s, kind of with the two world wars. You do want to focus on you do want to be, man is totally demoralized in a sense. So there is this optimism that comes out of this, which I think is good, but I think it was led in a way that, with certain theologians like Matthew Fox saying, not original sin, no, it's original blessing. Things like this have been very problematic, I find, for today. Yeah. So two extremes meet. And I talk about this in the book, how it's kind of two extremes meet. This false optimism goes back to pessimism, because we think ourselves as something we're not, and then we fall into a radical pessimism, which is not the case either. So I think Augustine does lay the base. I think we need Augustine today in that respect. So, but that's building off from Suárez. So Suárez has given the answer to between that, very optimistic as being a Jesuit. The Jesuits were optimistic in the sense that they had to go against the extreme pessimism of the especially in the question of human freedom. The Jesuits defended human freedom against the traditional Protestants of Calvin and the Lutherans. So human freedom is essential in Suárez. I might have touched about it in the book, but this next book I want to write will touch upon it more.
Well, without freedom, you don't really have much. I mean, freedom of choice. What you're going to do with your life, what you're capable of doing with your life. It's. But unfortunately,
no, that's no, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so when the Jesuits and Suárez was involved also, it might have been a little before Suárez' time, when they were defending freedom against the Protestants, the Dominicans were reading the Jesuit works and were appalled. They were appalled. They said, no, this is a way too much emphasis on freedom. Because the Thomists, so in that whole De Auxiliis debacle, is fascinating, but it's theological, tremendous polemics. So they said, no, God's omnipotence must be affirmed. Freedom is caused by God. Yes, human freedom exists, but human freedom is caused by God, since the Thomists focus a lot on physical causation. So God physically causes us to do things also. And St. Thomas has had this, because the problem of evil was just he could not fathom the problem of evil, and rightly so. I mean, evil is, actually they said he was eating with a king, and he was just so caught up in the thought of evil, and he was in a banquet. I don't know if you know the story, and he just slammed his fist on the table and said, "Yeah, evil could not have been caused by God." And everyone was looking at him.
Well, yeah, that was a good reaction, a normal reaction. Let's look at this guy. He's crazy.
So it's always in a profound thought. And that's the fascinating question between grace and freedom. It's like, which one? We are free, but wait, grace, but wait, God's omnipotent, but wait. The Jesuit position is fascinating, that we are free, and God, and this is a Suárez position, God from all eternity has given us what he calls a simultaneous concourse. God has decreed he's going to sustain all your acts, good or bad. Now, God thwarts a lot of bad acts. We don't know that. See, people don't know. They say, "Oh, how can God permit this evil?" You have no idea the evil that God has thwarted. You have no idea.
Yeah.
But God has decreed to give sustenance to your acts. This is Molinist Suárez position. And you are free to decide it. So once you decide, and it's interesting because that deciding is you, but how can God not be the cause of it? So you see, it's kind of like, but there's something that has to be from you.
Yeah.
Once you decide it, God gives his sustenance. As opposed to the Thomists, God physically predetermines you to do all things. Wait a minute. It's very, it's a very interesting topic there between the freedom and grace. And Suárez, he has more of the Molinist position, that God sustains us, but he doesn't. And this is why Suárez has a problem with that famous principle: everything that's moved is moved by another. That Aristotelian principle, the proof of God. Everything that is moved by another. Suárez had a problem with that because he said, "Wait a minute, then how is freedom justified?" That principle would negate freedom, because if God is the first cause of all things, which he is, of course, but there has to be some type of even in evil, there has to be the first causation in us in evil, not in the thing as it is. Right? Even evil that God causes, but as evil is only caused by us as evil. So that's a interesting question that book maybe opens up to, but it's one to look at as far as in my next book. I'll be looking more at that. Yep.
Well,
a lot of metaphysical things to consider.
Well, it's clear how much you love your work. I have interviewed many people, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone so you're visibly full of joy when you're talking about this topic. I mean, it's like you glow, not literally, but you know what I mean? How you can just tell. It's like you're giving off fives through a computer, no less, okay? So, I mean, it's pretty clear, where your heart and mind are. And I think that's great because, when you have that kind of dedication to something and you have that attraction to figuring it out, good things happen. I mean, look what kind of good things have already happened. That dissertation is very good. And you're going to be publishing it. And, so, but you're joyful.
Yeah. Thank you. And the book is published now, and it actually is just it's on Amazon now. So that's
oh wow! Already,
company is so fast, amazingly fast.
Well, I'll say because we just had the defense 2 days ago.
Yeah, it went on Amazon we had the defense last week, or I think 10. Did you say 10 days ago? Yeah, something.
Oh no.
Yeah, because it was, I remember, it was the Feast of St. Ignatius of Loyola, because I went to Mass right after that.
Oh, okay.
It was the 31st of July. So, yeah, 19.
Okay.
Yeah. 90 days ago. But yeah, I mean,
wow, time flies when you're having fun. I would have thought it was last week.
Yeah, it's a long time. The summer is zooming by too. Yeah, so yes, on Amazon, and it's called. If you just look up "True Catholic Development" and Suárez, you'll see on the cover it has, a portrait, you can say, of Suárez, Francisco Suárez. I like how they did the cover. Obviously, with my approval, I liked it a lot. It was really good. It's simple, but it just has the face of Suárez. And, that's the book. Yeah, go out and buy it.
Good. Well, anyway, I think you're going to have quite the career, because it's clear how much you love what you're doing, and how much, I mean, you're just pulling names and years and ideas out of space because you're so familiar with them, So, I mean, you've got a good foundation there. So
it's definitely, I mean, to be a philosopher or theologian, definitely, as you kind of alluded to before, the history, you kind of use the other sciences also to, direct and help smooth the path, we can say, to the queen of sciences, theology.
Yeah. I was originally a sociologist. That's what my doctorate was in, or is in. And after I converted, I went on and studied with Dominicans in Washington. Got the license, had a 90-credit master's, and off I went. But you're right. If you are in a legitimate science, in my case, a social science, I think that it does it opens up, I don't know, your thought processes. It's, if you're just doing one thing, if you're just doing one discipline, I mean, and you're not familiar with anything else, like you're talking about a lot of history. And that's, really, even though you're talking about theological history, you're also talking about history. So it is another discipline. And it's like it seems to just broaden the way we can think. It's almost like God lets us build more little bridges in our heads when we do this kind of work.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I did.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before, but actually Leo the 13th said that in his Eterni Patris, I think is in the revival of Christian philosophy, when he said that all the sciences, they help smoothen. I said it as coming from me, but it comes from smoothing the path to theology. So really, there's only one truth, and right, all these sources of knowledge come from, or ways to know, come from God. All the sciences, right, come from God, so they lead to Him. That's coming from His origin and end. So yeah, for sure. It's important. It's important. So as Thomas Aquinas said, I fear the man of one book. You can, in a sense, we can say, I fear the man of one science.
Right. But yeah, I think there is something to be said for it. I was studying criminology when I was at UMass, and I remember thinking, it was a long time ago. I was young. I remember thinking how awful people are to other people. I mean, not just people that are different. I mean, if people are different from us, we seem to, as the human race, we just seem to not be able to accept that. That there are other equal beings that are just like us, but different. But anyway, I remember thinking, wow, we do awful things to people, in studying criminology. It wasn't long after that I heard about, the dogma of original sin. And it was like, I think I see a connection here.
That's a moral, because the problem, I mean, one of the problems with this extremely optimist view is, and there are cases of this, but a lot of people think evil is the Socratic view. Evil is ignorance. Evil is always ignorance, and no, that's not the case.
No, not at all.
There are depraved wills.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a mystery. It's a mystery, but the mystery of iniquity. But it's there are wills that are depraved, and it's hard to explain because metaphysically, well, you say you can only desire what's good. So even in the evil, you're desiring what's good. Right, the whole thing is evil, it's disordered, but you're still desiring what's good. Therefore, you're just ignorant. No. You're doing what's evil.
Yeah, they desire the good, but the good they desire is evil.
Right.
Yeah,
It's evil in that context. Like that pleasure in adultery, even though that pleasure itself would be considered good, but in that adultery, right? That's bad. So but the notion of just blaming it on ignorance, because Socrates was kind of innocent in that sense, and this is kind of what I want to address in the new book. That this, I think the tides are turning, but at least this kind of innocence that is not. Well, Christ said, "Be innocent as a dove," but he also said, some people don't like this translation though. In Spanish, the word is very strong. Astute as a serpent, or as clever as a serpent. Christ is saying, "Be clever as a serpent." That's that's recognizing that that interpretation. What I would say, I don't know if the Father of the Church who has said it like this, but that that we recognize that there exist depraved wills. I think that's essential to that interpretation, being clever as a serpent, that depraved wills do exist, that people do evil knowingly. And that's, you can't give everyone, giving the benefit of doubt, yes, it's good, but at the same time, you just got to be, just know that evil exists and people do that willingly. So, it's a mystery. I'm sure in criminology, I don't know, that must be one of the fundamental, because even in criminology, they have this trend. There's a modern trend of not of almost erasing culpability, just blame exterior factors. Like, well, the exterior factors determine the crime. You're determined. You're not really free.
Yeah. I know. It's interesting because the determining factors, if that was true, everyone in the same situation would end up pretty much the same.
That's right.
But the one thing that I could see from having studied criminology is the horror of people who have basically no education, no sophistication because of race or ethnicity, or in the old days, gender. And as a result, they can't really grasp. I don't think they can actually grasp the things that people that are the rightness or wrongness of things.
That's for sure.
It's really a mess. But
there are some exterior factors for sure that what's really interesting, the communion of saints, which I also talk about in the book, the communion of saints. But the communion of saints is fascinating. Where I guess people, what Our Lady of Fatima said to Pius she didn't say that to Pius XII, but Pius XII, this was the most fascinating part of Our Lady's message when she said people are condemned because they don't have anyone to pray for them. He thought that was shocking. People are condemned because they have no one to pray for them. So the communion of saints gives us tremendous responsibility. And even though we do believe, though, that God gives sufficient grace for everyone to be saved, but then God could have given efficient grace to those that maybe we would have prayed for, or we would have done something. So the exterior factors definitely, definitely are a factor. Someone's, being bad in a sense, for sure, Even though we retain, our moral agency, there are the exterior. They cannot be denied.
Well, they do have an impact on us, and even though we may know right or wrong, maybe we just misinterpret it because of the factors on us. When I was when I was studying at Holy Apostles, I was going for a 90 credit master's. I had just converted, and the priest that I converted with said to me, that every time I hear any kind of emergency vehicle, I should immediately stop doing what I'm doing and pray, pray at least one Hail Mary for whoever's in trouble. So I've been Catholic since I think 85 or 88, I'm not sure. But for all those years, every time I hear an ambulance or the siren, I should say, I pray. And, now I live 3 blocks from a hospital, and the nearest really good emergency room you have to get to by helicopter if you're in trouble. So I hear the helicopter. I can be sound asleep and I'll hear the rotors, that beating noise that they make. And I will wake up. It's like it's a gift. I'll wake up alert enough to know that I have to pray now. And it's like, it's fascinating to me that one sentence out of that priest's name really changed me. Mm-hmm. And it's also, it's a little weird because sometimes the helicopter comes in and I'm praying and I just feel like this is a bad one, and I can feel myself getting teary. One night I was teaching, I teach at Avila Institute too. Okay. And I was teaching and the helicopter must have come here 5 times. And while I was teaching, and I thought, it's got to be a bad car accident or a shooting or something, so, but it's just interesting to see, that we can combat evil with things like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. The responsibility that God, I truly believe God places certain souls in our, in our way that we are in charge mm-hmm. of. And, even just praying, it's a beautiful gesture. What I try to do is apostolate. I buy miraculous medals, buy a bunch, mm-hmm. I get them blessed. I just give them to people, like mm-hmm. a gas station, Catholic mm-hmm. or non-Catholic. I just give them. I say, would you accept the medal? Mm-hmm. And then I pray that, Lord, just by their acceptance, I pray for them. I say, just by their acceptance of the medal, may they, may that be their salvation.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they accepted it. So, I think, I think it's really good that we kind of, and this is the whole kind of the liberal notion of not really exteriorizing your religion. Religion is its own place. No. We need to exteriorize it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
And that whole modern, kind of contemporary feel of no, that's for the home. That's your private life. My public life is this. My private life is this. No, that's not. I met a politician actually who told me, in Spain, and he said, I'm a deeply religious person, but I don't practice. So how can you be a religious person?
Well, that's what you hear here in this country. You hear a lot, like, I'm a believer, but I don't go to church.
I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. Get that cliche.
But that religion is supposed to be what you are.
Yeah, it's supposed to be what you like. It's supposed to define you. Like, it's supposed to animate all your actions. Mm-hmm. So this dichotomy is really a duplicity, and it's a hypocrisy, an evil one, mm-hmm. and it's sad. That's basically what we all need to combat. This hypocrisy. We just need to be true to ourselves and be good. Mm-hmm. and be good inside.
Be authentic. Be authentic.
I remember in the Army they used to teach us the virtues. One of the virtues was integrity, and integrity was do the good when no one is looking. I always love that. Mm-hmm. Do the good when no one is looking. Right?
That's
not when people are looking. That's obviously you do that, but when no one's mm-hmm. looking, that means you're sincere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally. Well, this has been a truly fascinating interview with lots of twists and turns. And
yes, those are the best ones.
Yeah, but I think when your fans watch you and get to know you a little better through this interview, I think that they'll be impressed. You're quite a thinker. So.
Good, and thank you for everything. I mean, it's been great working with you, and it's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
And you're new to Pontifex, right? You are fairly...
Yeah, I was at Holy Apostles for 28 years, and then my husband started to deteriorate. I think I told you he died last November.
You did.
So I left. I left Holy. I still teach online for them, but I don't work down there anymore. I left the end of September, and he died November 28th. But at least I was here all the time, when he really needed me.
Right.
But, yeah. So, but yeah, it's, I really think you've got, I don't want to say it's a career, because career just makes it so profane. I think you've got a good vocation in front of you there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I always had that passion there. And yeah, I teach too. I teach in 3 institutes. So
yeah,
Leaders University, Assumption College I teach in college for sisters. Really good. And some, the Dominicans are there sometimes. Different orders. And
that's great.
And I teach in a high school too.
And
pray for me, because I have a baby on the way. So my wife.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Month. Yes.
Great. That's good news.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you write another book, by all means, get in touch with Sebastian or me, and we'll do another interview.
Okay, great. That would be awesome. Yeah, I would love that.
Okay. All righty. So would you like to close us in prayer?
Yes. All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you for this interview. May it be for the greater good of souls and for your greater glory. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.
It was in the beginning, is now, and never shall be. Amen.
Mary, seat of wisdom,
pray for us.
Amen.
Well, I thank you very much. I've had a great time, and
I appreciate you. Yeah. And maybe on my channel, if you wouldn't mind,
Oh yes, would you tell me? Yeah, tell us what the channel is.
No, I was gonna say, if you would come on. I forgot about that though. I was gonna say if you would come on my channel, but yeah.
Sure.
My channel is, I gotta mention it. It's Rafael X. So it's 2 words: Rafael X with an F. Rafael X. And then Gonzalez with a Z. So Rafaelx, second word, Gonzalez with a Z, and you'll find me on there. We discuss philosophical, theological issues, and yes, that'll be great. Now, I'd love to have you on if you,
Sure.
Because I love this 2-way. I just started doing 2-way videos, and you get more views, and you're more comfortable. And, it flows as opposed to talking on the computer alone. It's awkward. It's awkward for me. And sometimes I mumble.
I know. Yeah. So, if you want me to be on at some point, just give me a call or an email. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, congratulations again. And, I'm very impressed with your work.
Oh, thank you very much.
And, I wish you all the luck in the world, and a new baby to boot. I mean, that's good.
Yeah, I'll send you some photos and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, you take care.
You too. Take care. God bless. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.